Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second in our series of educational webinars with Colorado Wireless. Glad to have you guys. Got people rolling in already, so it's great to see everyone joining. We are excited to have you. As you guys know, typically this time of year we're having a educational conference, and we get to see all you guys in person and have folks on the stage. And as we all know, unfortunately, we're not doing that this year. So instead, we're doing these monthly webinars, and we're great to be able to do that. And today we've got, as you can see, a cast of characters. We've got Todd Schlekeway and Gemma Frock with Nate. We've got Tim Urban, our president with COWA, and Scott Harry with Crown Castle, our sponsor for today's event. So thanks, guys, for being here and helping us put this on. So I'm going to kick things off. I know everybody's got a busy schedule, so I don't want to waste any time. So we'll jump right into things. So I'm going to kick things off by turning things over to Tim Urban, our president, and Tim's going to give us an update on all things COWA. So Tim, go with it.
Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. Hey, wanted to say thank you to everyone who's attending and everyone that's on the panel. We really appreciate your support, and we hope that this helps in some way with your future in the business. Today, I'm just going to introduce the newest board members, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the golf and clay shooting events that are going to be held just like we did last year for those who attended. We've got a golf tournament at Arrowhead again on July 15th, and our clay shoot at Kiowa Creek on September 9th, which I think everybody loved, and hope it all works great. We've got only one annual sponsor left, and that's a non-presenting sponsor, and that's for our clay shoot. So if somebody wants to spend a couple of bucks, you can certainly do it. You can visit our website at cowa.org, and I hope that everybody really enjoys this presentation from our folks at NATE. The board members, I'm new to the president's role, and Karen Clark has stepped in as the vice president. Brett Sorrells continues as our secretary, and Jeff Noseworthy, our treasurer. Oh, we hope to have a great year, and we look forward to seeing all you guys in person as soon as we can. So I'll give this back to Dan, and let's get busy.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for all you do for the organization as well. Appreciate it. All right, great. So again, I want to thank our sponsors, and today our sponsor for this event is Crown Castle, and we have Scott Harry, Government Affairs Manager with Crown Castle here in Colorado, with us today. And I just got to say that, you know, without sponsors like Crown Castle, they've been not just a great financial supporter of us through their sponsorships, but they help with the sweat and tears of actually doing the work. You know, Scott is one of their volunteers that helps us with you know, the things that we're doing on our committees and our boards, and numerous other folks from Crown. So with that, I want to give Scott a couple minutes to talk and tell us what's going on in the world of Crown Castle. Scott?
Sure, yeah. Hey, thanks, Dan. You know, being a part of Colorado Wireless is a real honor for me and also for our company, because Colorado Wireless is it's a dynamic group. I've really seen a lot of effective events and sponsoring some of the cool folks that we do. It's just really been an honor to be a part of it. So thanks. On today's subject, it's near and dear to my heart. It's near and dear to our company's heart. We are advocates of workforce development, and let me just tell you kind of how, you know, my history in the industry, and then I'll tie it into kind of where we're at today, and also how this webinar can really be effective for you. I started in the industry about 22 years ago, and I was a biology major, but I decided to get a real estate license so that I could, you know, do a little something on the side, because teaching isn't the most lucrative of professions. And a friend of mine said, hey, do you want to come do site acquisition for cell phone towers? And this was back in the 80s. And I was like, I didn't even know what that was. But I said yes, because it was a lot more money than I was making. So that's how I entered the industry. It's a very atypical way to enter the industry, but I love this industry. This industry there's a lot of high paying jobs. It's dynamic, and it's, nobody's putting their cell phones down during any kind of economic problem. In fact, they need their phones even more. So it becomes a really important industry for society as well, which is great. And so for 22 years now, we are, thriving in my family because of this industry. So I owe a lot to it. For this audience, workforce development means, in my mind, the key word is accessibility. So how is continuing education, how can we better have accessibility? How can we produce accessibility from our companies so that you guys can move up in your organizations, but also for those younger folks who are just starting out, how do we make sure that the programs that they're involved in are the ones that are going to really, be valuable and useful as we move into these high-tech areas. So in the 5G world, we have total connectivity, smart cities. The carriers are always trying to figure out how to increase data and bandwidth. We need lower latency for the new 5G world with self-driving cars and machine-to-machine types of applications. And we have edge computing. How do we make sure that our workforce is strong in these areas? And so for this audience, though, I think we're more already kind of seasoned professionals. I would venture to guess that of all the folks watching today, there aren't too many 22-year-olds fresh out of college. We're all kind of in the industry. So how can we as companies like Crown Castle, and how can Nate really spur on some activity here to make sure that these programs that you guys can be involved in are accessible to you? And I just want to make sure that you guys have your notepads out today and you're going to take some notes, because I know that Todd and Gemma have some really great insights into this. I've seen a splash of Todd's presentation. It's awesome. A lot of nuggets in there for you guys to take in. So thanks a lot for letting me be a part of this and sponsor it. And I'll kick it back to Dan.
Thanks, Scott. Much appreciated. Great. Well, so without any further ado, I'm going to just go through one more item, and that is just to give you guys all a heads up about our webinar for next month. Super excited about this one. It'll be on Thursday, March 11th, 3 o'clock Mountain Time, and we have Marty Cooper, the father of the cell phone. For those that don't know who Marty is, he was one of the engineers that invented the first cell phone. You can see him standing there in current day, holding it, and he made the very first cell phone call in April of 1973, believe it or not. And it's a great story. I'm not going to steal his thunder, but he's going to be with us next month. It's going to be great to hear from him, hear about his take on the history of cellular, where we're at today, where we're going. So that'll be a really good one. So watch your emails after today's event. You'll get an email with a link to be able to get a copy of the presentation that Gemma and Todd are going to be giving us today, as well as where you can go to sign up for next month. And then, as always, watch your emails, your social media, and our website for signing up for that and everything else, COWA. So that's that. So one more housekeeping item. Watch for polls throughout the webinar today. We'll be popping those up. Your participation is anonymous, so we don't know who's answering the questions. But it'll help Gemma and Todd know our audience and really cater their talk to us today. You can use the Zoom controls throughout today. So if you have a question, there's a Q&A bubble down there, just click that. I'll pass those questions along either during the presentation or at the Q&A at the end. If you have any problems, you can't see the screen because I screwed up on my end, just hit me with a quick chat and we'll get those resolved. So with that, I'm actually going to be putting up our first poll today. Right now, while I'm introducing Todd and Gemma, so that'll get them a good start on understanding our audience and knowing who you guys are. So I'm launching that poll right now, and while that poll is up, I will introduce Gemma and Todd. So Gemma Frock has been the Vice President of Education and Training at Aiken Technical College since 2012, where she's led the efforts to develop and implement a series of certificates for a tower technicians program. Students are able to earn certificates that lead toward an Associate's of Applied Science and Telecommunications Technology. She currently serves as a workforce consultant with NATE, and in this capacity, she chairs the NATE Workforce Development Committee. She taps into her 30 years of K through 12 public education experience, as well as her time in the Army education system to help develop programs to educate and train workers. She's actively involved in supporting veterans through local community boards and supports the telecommunications industry by serving on the Board of Governors of the NWSA, National Wireless Safety Alliance, and the Certification Test Committee for Tower Technicians 1 and 2. So that's Gemma. Gemma, thanks for being with us, and it's great to have you. Todd Schlekeway is the president and CEO of the North American Tower Erectors, also known as NATE. They're now about 970 member companies strong, so doing a great job there. Prior to joining NATE, Todd worked for 7 years as the founder and principal of a public affairs and communications firm called Full Court Strategies Group. Todd also has an extensive policy experience, having served for 2 terms in South Dakota State Legislature, where he represented Sioux Falls, South Dakota Legislative District in both the state and House and State Senate. Todd's played an instrumental role, in my opinion, in NATE's success, getting state, local, and federal attention on an action for the benefit of our industry and its workers. So, and I know workforce development is near and dear to his heart and a big initiative for NATE. So, so with that, I'm going to throw things over to Todd and Gemma, and I'll leave the poll up for a couple more seconds, and then we'll get them going.
Thank you, Dan. It's a pleasure to be here on behalf of NATE, and I would like to thank Dan and Tim and your colleagues at the Colorado Wireless Association for creating this platform to talk about such an important topic. I would also like to thank you, Scott, and your team at Crown Castle. NATE has a great relationship with both the Colorado Wireless Association and Crown Castle, and you know, we're excited to collaborate with your companies and organizations moving forward. This topic today is, Dan, it's not okay, here we go. Workforce development. There's not a day I can honestly say that doesn't go by where I don't get a phone call, an email, or some sort of correspondence from a member company about workers. Where can we hire more workers, Todd? What are you guys doing on the workforce front? And so that's why we wanted to visit today about, you know, NATE's direction when it comes to workforce development. One of the smartest things we did is hire Dr. Gemma Frock to kind of lead our workforce efforts. And one of the first things Gemma did for the association is write a workforce development initiative, really focused on the 4 pillars you see on the screen here: educate, advocate, connect, and communicate. And the first order of business was convening a workforce data survey that we did in the 4th quarter of 2021, or excuse me, 2020. And that's really driving our next steps. And so with that said, I am going to turn it over to Gemma to kind of run through some key takeaways of that survey.
Thank you, Todd, and thank you, Dan and Scott and Tim, for having us here today. It is certainly a pleasure to share a topic that is very dear to all of our hearts. As Scott indicated, it's a dynamic career pathway, and this survey, the data from it certainly helps solidify and give NATE and others that look at the data an opportunity to both qualify and quantify what is needed by the telecommunication industry. As you can see, the purpose of this was truly to provide us with data of the current and future needs of telecommunication companies. Now, this survey, while it was limited to the NATE member companies, it's very easy to extrapolate both from the companies that chose not to respond, but also across the industry, across the country. The survey consisted of 15 questions. The required questions that were very meaningful, that provided the meaningful data, of course, was company and employee information, very similar to the type of poll that Dan is surveying right now, is so we knew who was responding. Also, really critical was what was their reason for hiring, the time frame for hiring positions, and the number that was needed. I've heard since I've been engaged with the industry, numbers from 15,000 to 20,000 workers needed. However, nobody could really say in what position or what type of service provider the telecommunication needed those workers in. But we also had some optional questions, and those questions were to glean information that we can use in this next phase, which is promotion in the outreach phase, as well as developing programs. It's important to note this survey was not generated just by me sitting in Augusta, Georgia, but it was a strong contribution from the Workforce Development Committee of NATE. As we move to the next slide, you can see, Todd, can you advance it?
I did.
I'm not seeing it. Okay. There we go. As the response rate, as you can see from that, the response, yes, I can now, that Dan put up, the majority of the responses came from smaller companies that are members of NATE. However, it is important to note that our survey results did gain information from all the large member companies that are involved as members of NATES. In the next slide, you can see the breakdown of the actual response, very similar to what we're seeing today is how you classify. The members classified their response rate based on their key service that they have. Now, as you can see that while it appears that wireless and turnkey were the largest respondents, a lot of NATE members, as you all know, are those that provide everything from A to Z. So they chose the turnkey construction, repair, maintenance, and modification. Many of these companies do work in other areas like small cell work as well as DAS work. As we go to the next slide, Todd, you can go ahead one more. Moving into question 2, we asked, what states does your company need to recruit and hire workers from? And this was an important question because some companies, while their headquarters might be, say, for instance, in Boulder or Colorado Springs, you obviously do not let the state boundaries confine you from business opportunities that you might have in other states. As we were building this survey, it became apparent that a very high cost expenditure for a company was the constant recruiting and hiring and the process it was going through to respond. So this data that we're going to show in the slide that shows next in terms of where the workers were needed does not represent a company in one state. A company could have easily responded that they were in 2 or 3 or 4 states. The average response rate by companies was 3 states. The next slide shows as NATE likes to break down their areas by the wireless industry network. So we have used this throughout this presentation to show where those workers were needed, not so much by the state, but by the region. And you can see that bold pine green represents the Rocky Mountain area, which is where COW is located at. So in the next slide, I've broken down for you the number of individuals that responded. Totally was 8% indicated that they wanted to hire or recruit workers in the Rocky Mountain region. The next slide actually breaks this region down for you so you can see by state. If you look at Colorado, 25% of the respondents said that they would like in the Rocky Mountain region is where they were seeking to have work. And as you can see, Wyoming follows with 13%. And then we have Utah with 15, coming around the circle. We have Nevada with 15%, as well as Montana with 15. And then we have Idaho coming in with 17%. So it's to keep in mind, this may not be just the companies that are members of NATE that are located in the Rocky Mountain region, but these are companies from throughout the respondents that indicated they wanted to need to hire and recruit. As we'll talk later, this data is so important as NATE moves to the next strategy, which is building those relationships with local technical community colleges or vocational schools to build a telecommunication program, whether it's credit or continuing education, to help develop and continue to grow your workforce. Okay, as we move forward. This is just another breakdown of the Rocky Mountain region to show it in a different format of the number of responding companies who indicated. As we move into questions 3 and 4, this is one where we really wanted to know a little bit more about the types of employees of your current, as well as how many you employ as full-time, part-time, and temporary workers. And this was important because as colleges, but also as we recruit those young 22-year-olds or 19-year-olds into the industry, is to let them know and recognize that that first rung on the ladder is not the beginning or end. As Scott shared, he has a long career pathway, and as he indicated, a very lucrative pathway for his family. And that is important to show a new set of workers to enter your field, that this is not just a one-stop, there's opportunity. So let's look at the response rates to questions 3 and 4. As you can see, the total number of employees, and these are just those companies that responded, and I keep saying that because it's important to recognize this is just a slice of what the telecommunications sector represents. But there are 8,200 plus engineers, 10,000 plus technicians, and also 3,500 administrative. But what surprised quite a few that looked at this survey results is that 20,000 plus are full-time employees. A lot of individuals describe the telecommunication industry. They said, well, it's just like that construction. They ebb and flow based on the weather. Well, that's not quite true. You may only build houses in the summer, but in reality, this industry works around the year, 12 months out of the year, whether it's raining, snowing, as well as the hot temporary weather. And this was important, again, to indicate to those future workers that this is a permanent pathway, job that you can have 40 plus hours a week, as well as 12 months a year. The other reason we asked the types of categories, it's important to indicate to individuals that, and a lot of individuals don't recognize this, unless you have a neighbor that works in the telecommunication industry. If you're going to college and you decide you want to become a mechanical engineer, a lot of them don't recognize, or electrical engineers recognize, that there's a pathway and another whole industry sector out there that they can be employed. And that's the same is true as technicians, as well as those back office people that you need, those administrative, those project managers, program coordinators, accountants. A lot of individuals don't think about this sector. So as we move on to question 5, we wanted to know basically why they were expanding their workforce. And we gave them multiple selections, and most of it, as you will not be surprised, in the next slide shows that top response rates indicated they were interested in increased business to meet current demands, and as well as to fulfill future demands. 50% of the respondents chose these 3 as their top reason for hiring. And that hence is a lot of the speculation is on the pandemic has increased the need. Then we asked them, when do you want these workers? And when do they want them? Well, a lot of them indicated, if you look at 36%, they're always recruiting and hiring. And this is a clear indication that educational and training programs are needed because of could be turnover rate, it could be any number of reasons that it's in a constant state. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of man hours. And so an objective of NATE is to be a driver behind building a workforce training pathway to support the industry. In the next questions, we get down to the nitty gritty. What positions do you need? How many would you like? And essentially, when would you need them? So the next 3 slides are going to break these positions down by positions in need of 500 plus, and then breaks it down to those that are in less need. The first slide shows that technician slide. And as you can see, this slide focused on positions like tower technician 1 and 2. And we chose to break it down to a TT1 and a TT2 for a couple reasons. One, first and foremost, that individuals can enter the workforce with some very basic skills and begin their climb up that career pathway. But also because we wanted to align it with the National Wireless Safety Alliance trade certifications. And you can see that TT1s and TT2s, and looking at the survey response that Dan just placed up there, there's also a need from those that are watching us today. And of course, we include in this both the foreman, tower and antenna, and so on. The next slide it breaks it down into the next types of positions, those that are out there that you might not need a full crew of, but you'll see you have field technicians, civil technicians, lead tower, project managers, project coordinators as tower mods, and also rigger 2 and small cell. While small cell technician may appear to be a low number, that's that little beige bar in the middle, I've come to recognize that a lot of individuals cross-train their tower technicians or others within their company to help meet that business need that they have. So they may not have as many on staff, but they have quite a few cross-trained individuals. The very last slide in this section indicates that the other positions, broadcast, civil, electrical, and these numbers were lower, but it's still, and I cannot emphasize this enough, these 3 slides alone clearly demonstrate the dynamic, as we heard Scott say, career pathway for our citizens and those currently employed. And the key element that's missing is how do we promote that this is a needed pathway with our educators and our trainers out there, but also how do we get the message out to those high school students and those re-careering adults? Hey, there's a great sector out there. Have you considered working at it? Now, the very next slide will show you collectively, and this helps to validate that number I've heard bandied about. Oh, we need 20,000, we need 15,000. Well, if nothing else, a small number, and it wasn't that small, of NATE member companies responded. And within those companies alone, it indicates that there is a great need for this dynamic workforce. And I think, Todd, you have the next slide.
Yeah, thank you, Gemma. One of the questions that we were interested in large part because we hear about this anecdotally every week from companies in the industry is, how are you as a company, and what is your culture internally to recruit workers? We know the challenges. We're competing with all the other construction trades. How are you telling your story? And you see on the screen here that, overwhelmingly networking, word of mouth was the top choice there, followed by referral programs, online job boards, including a prominent one, Indeed. Social media has a role, some of the trade outlets in the industry for media, all the way down to industry events, career days, employment agencies. So it's just an interesting data point from the survey. And then this was one that was interesting to us as well. What is hindering you from hiring? Obviously the workers just aren't there in their region. or at least where the outlets that they're currently pursuing to attract workers aren't there. The skill level of who they're trying to attract isn't there. And this is one, the next few are ones I hear about a lot. You know, some of the excessive travel is a barrier to entry, especially when you talk about the tower tech and foreman positions. You know, these crews are on the road a lot. And so I hear that quite often as a barrier to entry to our industry with those specific positions. You know, the controlled substance screening, drug screening can be a barrier. The fear of working at heights is one that definitely can be a barrier for some. Everyone on the webinar here today knows that that's not for everybody. And so that can be a barrier for the macro tower contractors out there. So yeah, that was an interesting data point from the survey as well. And then retention. Our industry tends to be, again, at the technician level, it can be very nomadic. It's not uncommon for Joe Smith to go from company A to company B, you know, for, you know, 25 cents more an hour. And so there's a lot of movement within the industry. And so we asked a, you know, retention issue. Why are individuals, employees leaving your company? And travel again emerged, and a new career opportunity. Those two emerged as the top two choices. Some, it became a physical limitation. You know, there's a lot of wear and tear associated with, you know, climbing macro structures. The heights issue emerged again here. Some of the limited pay opportunities came up, but those were interesting answers as well. And then this is a key point here. We asked, would your company, after completing this survey, you're an 8-member company, you know, how do you support an education, training, or credentialing program? And, you know, 92% have some sort of in-house training, and that's very common among our membership. Most of these contractor firms are small businesses, so they go get a trainer who's an employee at their company, certified to be a train the trainer, and then he goes back and trains their employees, their technicians, and their field-based staff. So that was very common. This was a good stat, and we'll talk about NWSA a little bit later here. The worker credentialing arm of the industry is NWSA. So half the companies that responded have some sort of NWSA certification prep ongoing at their company, which is positive. Apprenticeships, we'll mention that later as well. That seems to be getting more of a foothold in our industry, and that's a fit for some companies. And then local education programs and internships. So it's interesting. And then we asked if we were to have a telecom program in their respective region, would they be interested? And 83% of the respondents said they would. And that's specific to like a local tech school or technical institute or community college program. So that really tells the tale of kind of what we're going to be focusing on here moving forward. And then I mentioned at the onset of this webinar, the data was the first key step in the strategic plan that Nate wrote. Now we have to leverage that data and maximize it to get what we want out of this, to move the needle on developing a new pipeline of workers who are skilled enough to you know, fulfill the you know, the 5G deployment objectives of our country, to bridge that digital divide that we all talk about every day. So we're going to use this data very aggressively here moving forward. And Gemma, I want you to talk kind of what you're doing now as a next step with this turnkey curriculum package.
Thank you, Todd. As Todd indicated, is where do we go from here? We had no intentions of placing the data on a shelf and never looking at it again. So the Workforce Development Committee is now moving forward into the next phase. As Todd indicated, there's been a lot of movement in support for workforce development from a number of entities and associations. So the analysis phase of building the TT1 curriculum. As you all know, that a curriculum for any type of program is built on what are the skills, knowledges, and the desired abilities that an employer would like to have. Well, there are a number of job task analysis that were completed. For instance, when NWSA chose to build their trade certification assessments, they obviously couldn't test an individual if they didn't know what was done. Also with the work that it was being done with TIRAP on the apprenticeship, and also having a local job task analysis done with a group of tower technicians that were experienced both in phase 1 and TT1 and 2. We were able to review those documents, and from that feel that we have a very solid base by which to build, not build, but to design and develop a turnkey curriculum package. Developing curriculum is not an inexpensive endeavor for an institution. So this was one obstacle that we hope to remove for a college to consider implementing a curriculum package. But secondly, and really most importantly, is to ensure the industry standards are met within the programs. In having a trade certification assessment, in designing the curriculum so that those students completing it will be able to sit and successfully pass it, actually then can become the stamp of standard of a program to indicate that they are truly going to graduate who you need and what skills they expect. If someone graduates in a program in Virginia and you're hiring them in Colorado and they have an NWSA trade certification, you would know that they have met that standard of expectation. So we have moved through, we are into the design phase, and we are working with a number of our current colleges that have partnered with NATE and in a region to develop a program. And once we have that material developed, we will pilot it. And as I like to say, plan, do, check, act. Once the curriculum's been implemented, it of course doesn't rest there. NATE is very committed to ensuring that there is a continuous improvement process. As this industry is changing and will continue to change, want to make sure that the students are learning what's current in their need. You will see that there are a number of programs already developed in some of the WIN regions. The next slide gives you a sense of where some of those colleges are located. In the Atlantic coast, we have a program in South Carolina and one in North Carolina. And again, these programs are not identical, but they have the same backbone and the same framework on the outcomes. The program in North Carolina is very much along the apprenticeship model, but the program in South Carolina at Aiken Tech, they have both the credit program, but they are currently also offering a short-term training program. The Southeast, we have a beginning phase of a program at Mississippi Gulf Coast. And then the Great Plains, this is Todd, was very instrumental with working with the corporate partner with Southeast Technical College. And then the sister college in that same state is looking at implementing a program in South Dakota. Todd and I have been engaged with the presidents of those two institutions, and they are going to work collaboratively again to ensure that the curriculum is aligned in accordance with the expectation. A brand new program is getting ready to launch in the Southwest region, which is Oklahoma State University Information Technology Center. That program is designed and ready to go. They're just in the recruitment phase. And then we also have a Great Lakes region program that is in the beginning phase, that they will build a stackable academic credential, hopefully culminating in a civil technician at that state. And Todd, it's back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Gemma. We're excited. The next time we visit with our friends at Colorado Wireless, we want to see a program. We want to identify a school in the state of Colorado that would be a good partner for one of these programs. And again, what Gemma just said is very important. We're going to be able to hand over a turnkey curriculum package to colleges who are interested. And we're going to be also able to say, hey, there's this many employers in your immediate vicinity there's a fit here. And so we're hoping that we get a program or two off and running in the Rocky Mountain region here in the next several years as well. But as a transition, Nate believes strongly that the time is now. We have tremendous momentum as an industry, as an ecosystem, to move the needle on workforce development. And several weeks ago, a coalition of industry organizations, wireless infrastructure, fiber-based organizations, sent a joint letter to President Biden, to the leadership in both the U.S. House, U.S. Senate, about workforce and the importance of making sure there's workforce funding provisions in any comprehensive telecom package, broadband package, infrastructure package that Congress would pass here in this new 117th session of Congress. And if you look at the organizations on this screen, I mean, this covers everybody. And if we have the grassroots advocacy and the lobbying clout of all these organizations collectively, we think there's tremendous opportunity here to make sure workforce funding is a part of any package. And that's going to be our message collectively moving forward.
Hey, Todd, I was going to throw out right now, while we've got everyone's attention, if anyone in the audience is aware of, Rocky Mountain or Colorado-based universities, tech schools, community colleges that you know of, that you've hired from, or that you know of that would be good fits, throw them in the chat window, and we'll make sure to get that over to Todd and Gemma, because I'm sure it'd be helpful for them to know, what we know in our market that could be beneficial for them to consider.
Thank you, Dan. That absolutely. Gemma and I will jump on a Zoom meeting with them as soon as we can. So.
And on that note, there's actually a question that has come in. Might be a good time to throw it out now, if that's okay.
Yep.
One of the questions that came in is, do the community colleges you guys are working with, do they license content from Nate? And if so, how is that priced? How are you guys managing that?
Gemma?
Dan, that's a great question. And Todd and I we have a survey out with our current educational partners, and what we're asking them, and one of the questions is, would they value for access to the curriculum a NATE nonprofit membership rate? So our goal is to have them join NATE and have access to the curriculum, and then and continue to pay an annual fee for NATE, in each year then they would receive the updates to the curriculum to ensure that the standards of the program are being met.
Great, thanks.
Gemma mentioned this earlier in the webinar, but it's very important to realize that a key part of NATE's strategic workforce development plan is promotion and outreach. We know the need, we know where the job needs are. We've got to tell our story better outside of our industry bubble. And so NATE is investing heavily in areas where we're going to do promotion and outreach to try to get our messaging out to the mainstream. And what do I mean by that? So we have retained a media production company called Story Built Media, who is working as we speak on a feature-length documentary film on the life of tower technicians. They went through casting call, nomination interviews. They've selected 6 technicians who are diverse, with diverse backgrounds from different parts of the country, who do different types of work. And they're going to be embedded with these technicians and their crews as they work, and they bridge the digital divide, and they do broadcast tower work, they do 5G work. So I wanted to mention this because this is a massive investment by NATE, because we want this to be seen mainstream, and we're going to do everything we can to try to get this to the level of some of the streaming services, because we think that this story needs to be told, and the story of opportunity in our industry, the story of a career pathway, the story of there's something for everybody in our industry. and that we're pandemic proof, we're recession proof. And so it's going to be exciting. One of the more exciting things Nate's ever done in our 26-year history. So be on the lookout for this. You're going to see some mass promotion of this film once we get a little closer to the launch date. We're also doing some specific outreach videos that kind of are fun in nature, really designed to promote workforce and the fun elements of working in the industry. And I'm going to show a video that we haven't released publicly yet, but we will. It's a new climber conversation video. I'm going to show that at this time right now.
When I'm on the tower, the scenery is beautiful in the summertime. The trees are waving. You feel like a bird. Like, you know, you're free. You know what I mean? It's amazing.
Best view I ever had at work is climbed a tower in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So when you get down there and you're working and you get at 350 feet and you look south and you can see the Atlantic Ocean and the sound in the same view, and it goes that way as far as the eye can see.
We did work down in New Jersey, and it was amazing just to see the river as far as you can see. It's pretty nice.
And those videos are just being used as another way to get the word out on social media, through different channels and platforms to tell the story of, hey, this is a cool industry to work in. Don't always have to sit in an office 40 hours a week. So another program I wanted to briefly mention today is Nate has a veteran sourcing program. It's ran through our Military of Nate committee, but what we do is we have several partners, Airstreams Renewables, Warriors for Wireless, Learning Alliance. So Nate members can gain access to graduates of those programs, and they farm them out. So if Warriors for Wireless graduates a cohort and one of the technicians is from the state of Oklahoma, well, members who sign up from that region get first dibs on talking to him. And so it's really a program we're trying to grow. And I've said this for a long time, you know, men and women with military backgrounds are tailor-made for our industry. And so the more we can do in those channels, the better from a workforce perspective. Another program that we're really proud of, Nate is on its 6th year of a U.S. Department of Labor training grant. And this year's program is on 5G small cell deployment training. We had our first training session, which I was at earlier this week in Bloomington, Minnesota, which is suburban Minneapolis. And you can see our schedule here. And there's one in West Virginia that's in September that's not on here, but really exciting because we are using the grant to offer these free training sessions on 5G small cell deployment training. And then at the conclusion of the grant year, we're able to make this curriculum free to all our members and the industry. And so it's really, really high quality training that we're proud of. And then NWSA certification, again, this is one of the more significant developments that have happened in our industry, because for the longest time, the tower tech and foreman level of worker in the industry, we didn't have a national credential, a universal credential that was ANSI accredited, that was portable for the worker and verifiable for the employer. And so the NWSA came along. Nate provided seed funding to the organization in 2014. It's its own 501c6 organization based out of Fairfax, Virginia. And they've really moved the needle from the number of technicians and industry workers they're certifying. You can see their all-time numbers on the left, and what they've done just in 2020, and that's in the middle of a pandemic. So what's driving that? It's a market-based approach. You're seeing vertical realtors like SBA and Vertical Bridge require it in their MSAs. You're seeing AT&T and T-Mobile requiring a percentage of technicians have to have their NWSA certification, and there's more to come on that. So we want to see the day where that is the end game. If you go to a community college program, you're going to get a certificate at that school or a diploma, but you're also going to leave that program NWSA certified, and then you're employable nationwide. And it's no different than an electrician's card. I don't know about all of you. I wouldn't let someone come into my house and do wiring in my house, electrical wiring, if they didn't show me their credential when they were at the door. I want to know that they're approved by their state and they have an electrician's card. Well, this is the same concept nationally for worker credentialing, and it's really been nice. You can see the spike here on this slide. More work needs to be done, but the carriers and tower owners are represented on the organization's board of governors. They're going to drive this. We don't want this to be dictated by the government, by the Department of Labor. This is a private sector solution to worker credentialing, and the sky's the limit for the NWSA. Tie wrap. So apprenticeships is a model that's starting to gain footing in our industry. WIA is the national sponsor of this apprenticeship program. You're starting to see more companies look into that as a way to train current and future workers. And I think there's going to be some exciting news coming out soon on some potential incentive funding for employers who do take apprentices through their program. So this is something to keep your eye on moving forward, because it's a model that should work well for our industry. And with that said, before I turn it over to Dan, and I just want to thank all of you on behalf of Nate and Gemma. Thank you for being a partner of Nate. The workforce issue is all hands on deck, and it's not one organization, not one company is going to solve this. This is a collective ecosystem-wide approach that needs to be taken to really move the needle and solve this challenge. But we feel like there's tremendous momentum right now, and we're hoping to capitalize and seize on that momentum, moving forward. And before I turn it over to Dan, I wanted to let everyone know that this tower, you see, this was in Colorado. It was a photo taken by a drone. The gentleman in the middle is the former chair of the FCC, Ajit Pai. He visited a tower site in Colorado several years ago, and I wanted to include that as a ending slide, just to say that we marvel at the beauty of your state. So thank you, Dan. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Todd, and thanks, Gemma. Really appreciate it. This is great stuff. And Todd, if you want to stop sharing your screen, you're welcome to as well. We definitely have some good questions coming in. Everyone else, that if you do have questions, throw them out. One question is actually not as much of a question, but I'll throw it out. So Scott Harry chimed in to mention, Todd and Gemma, that Crown Castle is working with the Colorado Business Roundtable, who is in the process right now of developing a pandemic economic recovery plan for the state of Colorado. And he says that workforce development is a huge part of that plan. So Scott serves on that committee. So I'll connect Scott and you guys. I think there's a good opportunity to work together to see if Nate and the work that the Colorado Business Roundtable are doing might have a way to work together. So thanks, Scott, for that one. Let's see. Next question we got was, does Nate work with high school career days and guidance counselors?
Gemma, do you want to take that one?
That's a great question, and it's one that has been discussed quite heavily in the Workforce Development Committee. It is, when I worked full-time as a vice president of academics, I found a lot of interest when I would go out on high school career days or technical days. The challenge came in with the companies, at least in the region of the South Carolina, they prefer workers that are 18 and over. So that's one of the strategies of the educational portion of workforce development, is to, as the curriculum is developed, is to look at the high schools and partner with colleges to create what I would frame as a 1+1 program, so that as the student is in their last year in a technical program, they could earn some of those fundamental certificates needed and then transition to the technical college and earn the training that would help credential them with the trade certification. So it's in the plans. We certainly promote it, but we still have to have a little bit more before we can get a full-fledged promotion. The video documentary that Nate is working on will be an absolute gold mine to those career and technical counselors. I will say one other thing. I did present to the ACTE, which is the National Certification for Career and Technical High School Counselors, and shared a lot of information about the telecommunication industry.
Great, thank you. I actually have another one. This one's mine actually, and it just came up as you were presenting. Todd, you and I have talked over the years about a lot of the not just hiring but retention problems that we've anecdotally seen, and you guys sort of reflected that in your surveys that you talked about today. One of those being the failure to pass a controlled substance screen. And I'm curious, have you guys seen evidence or data that suggests that that has increased or decreased over time with the prevailing increase in number of states that have now legalized marijuana? And if so, has there been any discussion with carriers or what have you with regards to contract policies, operational policies around that substance in particular? I know it's a tough question, but I know a lot of people have it on their mind.
It's funny you asked that, Dan, because I literally 2 days ago got an email from a prominent member company asking about the, the kind of the sweeping landscape as it relates to the marijuana legislation that's, at the state level. I know Colorado, was one of the first states to, for employers to have to navigate that issue. And now we're seeing it kind of sweep the country, where even in South Dakota, a state like South Dakota passed that on the ballot. The voters did this year, and not only medicinal, but recreational. So you're seeing employers across the country having to navigate that. We have some resources. I've talked to some of our prominent insurance member companies who provide workers' comp coverage to members. We're in the process of updating our NATE safety and health resource library we're going to have online, and there's going to be a substance abuse section to that members can use in their respective safety and health manuals. But I guess it's a roundabout way of saying, Dan, it's moving so fast that I don't think we have a concrete plan or direction on that yet, but we recognize that it's becoming more and more of a challenge to employers. And it's something that, we need to be very much aware of and cognizant of moving forward.
Do you know, have the carriers themselves been at the table as part of that discussion? Because obviously, their contracts are the big driver as well.
Yeah. Well, I know that if those who use the onboarding platforms, the services, the Avetta or the ABIS Comply, and for those who do telecom, oil and gas work, they have to go through ISN Net World. They're having to submit their company policies through those in order to get green lighted to work for the carrier or owner or whoever their customer is that uses. So they're starting to see those questions populate up in the onboarding process, Dan. I can tell you that. Got it.
Another question. I'll keep it anonymous, but you might guess who asked it. Is that a crown tower in that last picture with Chairman Pai?
I know because I helped set up that event. It is not a crown tower. It is one of the competitors of Crown, and I won't name them.
Touche.
We have, with that said though, Dan, it's important to mention, we have partnered with Crown on a visit with former Congressman Dave Loebsack in Eastern Iowa, visited a site with us on a crown tower. So it's something we like to do with all of our tower owner friends, is when we have a chance to take an FCC commissioner to a site or a member of Congress, we do that. And Crown's partnered with us on that before.
I recall you guys did a Tower Connect video a year or two ago that Crown hosted and was a big part of producing
Yeah.
too, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Jeff asked if this is being recorded. Yeah, it is, Jeff and everybody. And you, in addition to the link to register for next month and to get a copy of the slides, you guys will also get a link to a recording of today's event as well, so you can rewatch it. So yeah, that's a great question, and thanks for reminding me to point that out. Another question real quick before we wrap up. I know we're at the top of the hour, but I think it's great, the 5G development work that you guys are doing for training. Question is, on the NWSA front, is there been talk or consideration about a certification that is effectively non-climber based for small cell? And what's the status of that?
Well, I have told the NWSA that that's the, something, I know it's on their radar. They have several programs that they're looking to develop next in the queue. It takes tremendous amount of subject matter expertise, man hours to develop one. So, and then there's a cost associated with it, but I do know that's on their radar. And some of you may not be aware, but Gemma Frock actually serves on the NWSA Board of Governors. Do you have any insight into that, Gemma?
In fact, we just had our Board of Governors meeting this week, and small cell is in the next queue, in the next 4. It's not in the queue for 2021, as Todd indicated, and I can share if it's roughly about a 75,000 plus commitment of funds to work through the process with the SMEs, the travels. They don't get paid for their time, but reimbursement there, but as well as developing the online certification assessment process. But it is in the queue, but it's not in the next immediacy for next year.
Okay, got it. Well, awesome, guys. I want to respect everyone's time. We're a couple minutes over, but I say that's pretty darn good to be that close to our time frame. So it was great stuff. Todd and Gemma, thank you for participating today, and in general, just thank you for the support that Todd, Nate, and Nate Wynn has given us as well. It's a great partnership, and can't say enough about how great the relationship has been, and we really appreciate it. So with that, thank you to you guys. Thank you to Tim for your update and all the volunteers at COWA. Thanks again to Crown Castle for your sponsorship and your support. And we hope everyone has a great rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you.